It far exceeded my expectations. I'll put it to you that way. Having heard so much about the country and from people who had been on previous trips, you have all sorts of expectations. But I'm just saying the impact of what you actually experienced exceeded my expectations.
When we got to Israel, we had already experienced worship in each other's settings. We had already discussed some of the things, but to see it lived out live in everyday life was truly amazing and a blessing. We could speak the other's language, so to speak, and say, oh, that's what you were talking about, or that's the relevance, or I didn't realize, this or that, and, the magnitude of things. So it really brought things to life.
Yes, this was my first trip to Israel, and it was fantastic.
I just fell in love with the country. I mean, it was such a magnificent place that, I just truly, and one of the things that stuck with me, I really wanted to go back to the Western Wall.
Actually work with Otterbein retirement community in developing a curriculum for teaching people at least something about Judaism and Christianity, at least to give us a basis for our experiences. And I think perhaps the most meaningful experience of that preparation was the, I guess I would call it a pulpit exchange, when we worshiped at Otterbein and the folks worshiped here. And I think that really concretized, at least for me, some of the feelings of preparation and the kind of things we'd experience in Israel.
Everyday interaction, worship experiences, having communion together, those kinds of things, just, which is outstanding.
And I was very impressed because the people from Cedar Village, when we had communion service, when we had baptism in the Jordan, they were right there with us. And it just, if the world could be that way, it really impressed me very much.
An interfaith mission had incredible power, but whether you take an interfaith mission or you take a mission of all Jewish people or Christian people, or you take a trip to the seashore, any of those experiences that you can have with residents, that you can do something that is life-enhancing and enriching and changes it and gives all of those folks an opportunity to experience something they only dreamt about, I think is well worth doing. I think as individuals who have dedicated our careers to caring for older adults, to be able to do something with them that is so different and so fulfilling is something that we all should have an opportunity to do. And some communities may not be able to take on a mission of this proportion. That's okay. But to be able to think outside of our usual activities and to think about what can we do that would really be so transformative, and to seize those opportunities and experience them with your residents is something that I think anyone can do and anyone can appreciate.
I was very fortunate. I really experienced the luck of the draw. Bernie was very helpful, assisted me in every way. He was a real buddy. I hadn't had a buddy since I was in summer camp, and Bernie was my buddy.
This was my first time having a buddy, and I couldn't have had a better buddy than Elaine.
She's right. We had a blast. It was great having a buddy. I felt so comfortable having Sally with me because she's like my third daughter, sorry. And we just did everything together.
It was an interesting experience because I like to be independent. And yet there were times that Mary Ann reminded me that I better take advantage of her help. And it worked well. We really had no problems at all.
Danielle watched me every step of the way. When I went up to eat, she saw me, how I walk and everything. She was there for me, for everything. When I needed help, she was there. And poor Danielle pushed me around in some places that were too difficult to walk. But Danielle was the best partner anyone had. And she's sweet and adorable and young. I was lucky.
as an employee, be able to pick to go to Israel, I was ecstatic. I felt that I was carrying, a blessing to go over there. And with Helen, she was my buddy. She took me under her wing and taught me like the history and stuff. We'd be sitting on the bus and Yakov would be talking to us about where we're going, this and that, and she'll be telling me more history and more depth than her experiences. So it was going from here to Israel and having her by my side, I felt, I was very blessed to be picked to go and have her as my buddy.
I think the piece of it being an interfaith mission was one that was not necessarily what I expected. I don't know that I had an expectation, except that it be such a rewarding experience and such an enriching experience for our residents. But I certainly thought that there was some dialogue with that, and it was, but it will hopefully serve as a catalyst for continued dialogue. And again, having that understanding and that appreciation. And I thought it really, for me personally, I looked at Israel differently during this mission, because I looked at it from a perspective of this is not just the Jewish people's homeland. And I thought that was very important for me personally to really realize the other religions and that this is their homeland.
Well, after looking at our itinerary, Bethlehem was one place I wanted to see. Of course, the Masada, I think that was a fantastic trip. It was a very difficult trip, a very difficult hot day, but we all made it, and it was just fantastic. And I had never really known the whole part of the Masada history. And then we came back, we watched the movie, and then I realized how important that was. It was fantastic, fantastic.
A really fun moment was on the Galilee Sea on the boat. We all, was sitting there, and it was kind of quiet, and I started playing some music, and we started enjoying it, and next thing you know, somebody's dancing, and everybody was dancing, and it was just so much fun, to really relax and enjoy the moment.
Going on the Galilee and getting on a boat and dancing with everybody, that was really thrilling to be out there where Jesus had been, where the history was so great. The experience was just wonderful. At the Masada that Fred mentioned, the wedding the Zeidmans had, the 60-second re-wedding, that was just beautiful there.
Every event, every agenda, every item on the itinerary, because I looked at the itinerary and went through it, and I even Googled a lot of stuff on the computer and looked at it. Oh, that'd be kind of neat. But then it just became way too much to look up. There's a lot of stuff on that itinerary. We saw a bunch of different things. You no sooner do the morning of the second day, and that's when you went perhaps to go plant trees. And then the next thing you did, you said, boy, that was really something. I never expected that. Then the next thing you did was, wow, I never expected to do that. So it just kept building. It just kept building. So now, looking back on it, the sequence of all the events were just spectacular. They were just marvelous. I can't find enough adjectives.
What was the best part of the trip for you?
How much I learned. I learned a lot about the world and about the people.
Went to Yad Vashem.
I was there 3 times. I was there when Ben-Gurion was nominated to be the president.
Well, I knew about the wall, but that affected me like I've never been affected before. And I just couldn't really explain the feeling that I felt
when I got to the wall. It was like, it was drawing me to it. And then afterwards I cried like a baby, which I just didn't expect that.
That's a memory you'll never forget.
I'll never, never forget that.
52 years. They met, Marge, when you were 14. Stan was 17. Right. You fell in love almost immediately. Right. It took a little bit of time. 5 years later, this talit, right, that was used when you became a bar mitzvah, right, was spread over both of you, where Rabbi Greenfield performed your wedding in Chicago 62 years ago.
Each day was better than the day before. The Holocaust Museum, the Anchor Choir, which was a delight because they had been here last year and had come to Cedar Village, dancing on the boat, as she said, just so many things. The daycare, the senior daycare center, the school for young adults, and they took us through everything. The donkey farm, and I thought I was going to get to ride on a donkey, but I didn't. I can't.
Getting dressed up. We got to get dressed up in the Bedouin costumes. You know, to me, one of the highlights was when we all went on the Sea of Galilee on a boat ride, and we put on the music, and everybody was dancing, and everybody was doing the horror, and everybody was dancing with each other, and it really showed what it was all about, because it was spiritual, and it was moving, and it was showing that we had all really clicked and all really bonded together.
One of the places that affected me the most was the Garden of Gethsemane. And it's a simple garden. I look out the door and I see something similar. But knowing the stories, knowing what happened there from my own beliefs, that was an overwhelming day for me. I walked away from that trip knowing more, feeling more, and eager to learn more. So I thank you for the opportunity to allow me to go, and I will thank you every day for the rest of my life.
Well, I never once felt in danger. I never worried while I was there. I actually never worried about going there, but many people expressed concerns. When we got back, unrest occurred a week later, and we all sort of reflected on how strange that was and how that seemed impossible because it seemed very peaceful there.
Our son didn't really want us to go because of the unrest that's always over there. But I never really felt that. I felt that we were together, and the State Department wouldn't allow us to go if it was that bad. And I just never had that kind of concern, and nor did I when I was there. At no time did I feel unsafe.
I mean, our guide had been in the Army, and he was very well trained and kept us informed about everything. And I think it was you who told us Jacob would not take us any place that was not safe.
But just the fact of getting together with our residents here and with the residents from Cedar Village and getting to know them as people and seeing them in a more relaxed atmosphere than what I would normally see them here, and learning about their feelings and how they view their faith and their feelings about their faith and their feelings about their families. For me, that was one of the best parts. I'm a people person. I like that. I like to get to know people. I like to hear about feelings. I like to talk about that and relationships and that kind of thing. So that was very moving for me, and it was a big draw for me as well.
The most important element is to have people of the quality of Kay Serta and all the other members of the staff who accompanied us. They were outstanding, cooperative, very willing to do everything. And before this interview ends, I've got to mention something. I was having some trouble with my legs, and I had a walker with me. And there were places where the walker was of no use whatsoever, particularly in Jerusalem. Well, I found that I had assistance. I had Carol, who's the CEO here, on one arm, and I had Marcia, who's her associate, on the other arm, and they lifted me up and carried me through tight places in Jerusalem and many other places like that. It was remarkable. And now these are tiny girls. These are petite women. And they were lifting me all through parts of Israel. So I'm just saying, if you have people of that sort of quality, it has to be a successful trip.
Well, I would say the best part in this instance was the fact that they had been there before. And so it made where we were going, the places we were going to visit, a lot more interesting in that they would say, well, we've been there or we haven't been there. And the fact that it was like, not like, because we've always traveled alone, basically. This is actually the first group we've actually toured with, so to speak. And it made life so much easier. We knew where we were going, we knew where we were staying, and the fact that they were a Jewish group, I don't think it made that much difference. They were just us.
I think it was extraordinarily successful. I guess the surprise was that there were no negative surprises. There really were no glitches. The itinerary wound up being terrific. The experiences were the way we had hoped. You always want to be challenged to be able to have people feel free to talk about their experiences with each other. I think as the trip went on, we became more comfortable with each other and more willing to open up about our religious commitments too. So I was very pleased.
The plus was you got to see all kinds of different perspectives. It wasn't just your own perspective as a Jew. It was the perspective of the whole world because it was all blended together.
I would tell them it's a wonderful experience to see and feel the difference of people from all over the world, because, you know, Israel, Jerusalem is the home base for all history of religions. I'm a watcher and an observer, and I watched everything and took everything in. I feel very fortunate, I really do, and very lucky.
God calls all of us into service. He calls all of us to love one another. And He calls us to new beginnings each and every day. So that was really a wonderful thing. And I think that it was important for some of the staff that are Christian at Cedar Village to be able to participate in that way and to celebrate their faith traditions. And it just really enhanced the whole meaning of the trip, to understand why we celebrate the things we do, and to understand that, you know, those are the things that give us strength in our spiritual journey.
Cedar Village is 15 this year, 18 is Chai. Maybe there's a Chai mission in our future. I wouldn't rule it out. I think if our residents have a desire to do something and we can find a way to make it happen, that's who we are. That's what we live by, that's what we believe. So I wouldn't rule out anything as our next stop.
There was some prodding on behalf of some of the people here at Otterbein to be part of this, and because it was really cool, it was really neat, and I haven't regretted a moment. I have not regretted anything. Okay.
So every year at the end of the trip, I always write a song, and we do it on the last day at the final banquet. So I'm just going to sing you a little bit of the first one. Here we all are in Israel, we're so glad to be here with Cedar Village and Otterbein. Our Israel journey has been oh so fine with our tour guide and our friend Yaakov. Shlomo driving the bus, counting off to 30 each day to keep track of us.
Eretz Shelanu, Eretz Sheli, Eretz Sheli.